What's going on, everybody? My name is Danilo Kaprick, and today we're going to answer a very specific question, one that I've seen floating online a lot more these days. I've even had a lot of people DMing me on LinkedIn about this, so I figured I'd make a video about it. But anyways, the question we're here to answer is, how on earth do I get into tech sales, especially if I have no experience and no network? Before we get into it, I think it's very important to explain one quick thing, which is who the hell am I and why on earth am I even qualified to make a video about this in the first place? So my name is Danilo Kaprick. I've been in software sales for about 9 years now. And like many of you watching this video, I started off with zero experience. Believe it or not, my first job ever was selling vacuums and mattresses over at good old Sears. Love that place. And then after that in college, I was selling shoes at Cole Haan, if you guys are familiar with Cole Haan shoes. Love their shoes, by the way. And despite having zero experience and familiarity with tech, I didn't go to school for technology at all either. I was able to find a job in tech where I've been now for the last 9 years, been able to make some great money and do some life-changing things for my family. So that is a little bit about me and why I feel qualified to make this video, because I've actually done it and been able to sustain a long career for almost a decade now in tech sales. Now, let's get to this approach that I've been talking about. The number one recommended way to get into tech sales, in my opinion, is using a method that I like to call the industry pivot. Now, don't worry, if it sounds complex, I promise it's very, very simple. The industry pivot is all about finding companies that sell technology to the type of companies that you already work for today, right now. So let me give you an example. If I was a construction worker and I worked in construction, I would find companies that sell technology to construction firms. If I was a banker, let's say I'm a teller at Wells Fargo, I'm going to find companies that sell technology to banks, right? If I was in the makeup industry, or I was a barber, I did cosmetology, I did lashes, whatever it was, I would find companies that sell technology to salons and makeup professionals and people in that field. And there's 3 specific reasons why we want to take this industry pivot approach. Number 1, very simple, but you already know the challenges of that customer they're trying to sell to, and you have instant relatability. What do I mean specifically? Let's say I'm a construction worker and I'm interviewing with a company that sells technology to construction firms. I'll be able to say during the interview process, hey, I used to be a construction worker. I know what they love about their job. I know what they hate about their job. I know the things that they wish they could do with their jobs, etc., etc. So you being from their industry and having been in their role, you can instantly be relatable to the customers they're trying to sell to. That is something that not every applicant can say in the interview, and that wildly sets you apart from anybody else that's applying, especially if they don't have that industry background. So that's the first thing there. You're able to say that you know the life of their customer, you know their challenges, you know the things that they love and hate, and you're easily relatable to that customer base, okay? Number 2, the reason why this approach is successful and can help you get into tech sales is because you already know the language of the customer. And what I mean here is, quite simply, every single industry, no matter what, whether it's retail, banking, technology, whatever it is, they have their own language. And if you've been in a specialized field, you know this, right? Banking, for example, has thousands of terms and acronyms and things that the average person doesn't know, things that I wouldn't know, right? In technology, there are thousands of acronyms, buzzwords, and actual language that the average person who's not in the industry doesn't know. So if you are coming from a field like construction and you're interviewing for a company that sells technology to construction companies, you can instantly say, hey, look, I already know the language. I already know the jargon. I know the buzzwords they use. I know what those things mean already. And the reason that you want to stress that point is because during an interview process, you can say, hey, look, me coming from that industry already, I know the language. You as a company will have to invest less time, less resources, less training, because your learning curve is going to be less steep. Your learning curve is going to be less steep because you already know some of the language in the industry. So that's the second point there, is you know that language. It's going to be easier for the company to bring you on, and you're going to be faster in terms of producing output and being more effective with those customers because you have less to learn. All right, so that's number 2. Now, the final and third reason on why this approach can help you get into tech sales, way more effective than other approaches, is because you already know some of the products that people are using that you're going to try to sell to. What do I mean? Well, if I came from a construction background, I'm at least going to be able to say from my own experience, yeah, back in my day when I was in construction, we would use XYZ software for this, we would use this software for invoicing, we would use this software for communication, whatever it was. And so by you having some knowledge, some understanding of the tools and technologies that those companies are already using, you can come into the interview and say you have some idea of the competitive landscape. You can say that I have an idea of the technology they're already using, and I'll be able to, again, be relatable and understand what those things are and easily point out why maybe our software is better or not better, right? So overall, again, there's 3 specific reasons why this tends to work. Number 1, we know the day and the life of that customer, we know their challenges, and we can be relatable to them. Number 2, the company is gonna have to spend less time and resources on us because the learning curve is less steep since we already speak their language. And number 3, we already come in with some idea of the competitive landscape and some of the technologies they are already using. So overall, that is the approach that I recommend for getting into tech sales. And at this point, you're probably scratching your head and thinking, well, Danilo, that sounds all great, but how do I actually find a list of companies that sell to, the companies that are in my industry, like banking or construction or cosmetology? It's very simple, guys. All you have to do is go on Google, type in companies that sell technology to, and if I'm in construction, I'll put construction companies. And I actually did this a second ago, and I found 2 interesting results. One of them was 2022 top technology construction firms or construction technology firms. And from there, they've already got lists curated. You can go ahead and look at that list. From there, you go to LinkedIn, find those companies on LinkedIn, and you're looking for 2 things on LinkedIn. Number 1, you're gonna look for open roles and positions that they're hiring for. Obviously, you wanna find one you're interested in. And when you do, the next thing you wanna look for, number 2, is employees at that company who are already in those roles. And what you're gonna do when you find them is send them a connection request, doesn't cost any money, and you're gonna say, hey, saw you working at this company, I'm actually interested in applying for XYZ role, was wondering if you'd be open to having a call next week for 10 minutes to talk about your experience at that company. And in that conversation, actually before we get to the conversation, if you do that with 20 employees that work at that company, one of them is going to say yes. One of them will say yes. Why do I know this? Because I've had people DM me on LinkedIn and ask me about my experience at other companies, and I've said yes. So I know there's gonna be people out there who do this because in tech, we know we're very lucky. We wanna help other people get into tech because we know what it brings you, okay? So I guarantee if you do this 20 times with 20 employees at that certain company, someone is gonna get you on the phone and actually tell you about their experience there. From there, the last thing I recommend doing is in that conversation, if you like what you hear and you feel like it's a good opportunity, ask them if they would be willing to give you a referral. In other words, would they be willing to put your resume in the system so that it can go directly to a recruiter as opposed to you having to blindly apply and hope that you get a response, right? So overall, that's really the approach I would take, guys, is I would find out, okay, if I'm in construction today, let me find the companies that sell technology to construction companies. Let me find those companies on LinkedIn, find the roles that they're open, that they're hiring for, find employees on LinkedIn who already do that job, DM them, get their feedback, and ask them if they're willing to refer me. I'll say this one last point, guys. When I was working at Cole Haan and I got into my first tech sales job, it was from a referral. It was because I met someone at the company who happened to be buying shoes that day, and we hit it off and I got his card, right? The next company that I ended up working for was also because I knew someone who put me in the system, got me in as a referral. The third company, I didn't even have to apply because I had already been in tech for now 6 years. They reached out to me. So I just want to say that because it's really a nice data point for you to reference that this approach really works and that a lot of people out there will get the job first if they use the referral method as opposed to blindly applying. So overall, guys, I hope you enjoyed the content in this video. If you found this stuff helpful today, click the subscribe button below and make sure you stay tuned for the next video. With that said, I hope you guys have an amazing day, relax, and get ready for the next content coming up. All right, take it easy.